Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nails and Beauty Talk. I am your host, Asia the Bird. We have a very special guest with us today. She is an artist. Please welcome Eunice. Hello, Eunice, and welcome.
Hello, hello.
Hello, glad to have you. So, I want to go ahead and get started by asking where you're originally from and tell us a little about your upbringing.
Okay. I'm originally from West Africa. I was born in Niger,
Hmm.
and my ethnic group is from Benin. So
Mm,
that's where I'm from.
that's cool.
um, my
Go ahead.
upbringing. I I spent my first 10 years out there in Africa, and you know it's home. That's the best thing I can say. And then we immigrated here to the United States,
Hmm.
and we ended up in the Midwest. And that's where I learned English. That's where I learned a little bit about American culture.
Mm. Yeah, that's cool. I want to get into as far as hobbies. So, prior to getting to art, did you have any interest in other hobbies?
I don't think there's no real prior to. I think that for me, art has kind of circulated a little bit of everything that I've done.
Mm.
I did theater, I did music, I played sports, a little bit of crocheting, not good at all at crocheting. I played, a couple of different instruments, and then
Mm.
art just seemed to be the one thing that communicated a lot of those feelings and needs in multiple different stages of my life. So it's one that I've kept.
Mhm. So I want to get into as far as your school experience. What was like your school experience like as far as like grade school, college, things like that?
Yeah, I definitely the grade school was a lot harder. When we first moved to the United States, I got held back. My sister and I were the only two black kids. Not only were we black, but we were also non-English speakers and we were
Mm.
foreigners. So there was a lot of bullying, which,
Mm.
which is normal for that age. I think the toughest part was getting bullied by teachers, right? Like grown adults, and you know the comments, the jokes, and um, you don't always have to understand the language to understand the feeling that you get from someone when they say something, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
Um, so that was definitely tough. Middle school was kind of a blur. I started theater and a lot of like show choir. My parents wanted us to have access to all sorts of education and
Hmm.
access to the tools that were afforded to us in school. So I started playing the viola, played a little bit of different instruments, and
Hmm.
um, got into all the sports because we were hoping for scholarships. Um, and then before I
Mm.
knew it, I got to high school. High school um, was a different beast. I wanted to get out of school so bad. I did not want to be in school at all. So
Mm.
I took a bunch of AP classes and tried my best to get out of school as fast as possible. I graduated, um, a semester before the school year was done, my senior year.
Wow.
Yeah, I was supposed to be done the junior year. I was like, I'm not going back there. I'm not
Yeah,
going back.
yeah. I'm
My
out.
parents were like, no, you're gonna miss out on opportunities. You could do this and that. And I was like, whatever, I'll do it. But I started taking college courses
Hmm.
around that same time just to kind of work my way out of high school, and then I got one of my first two jobs at around the same time. And so
Mm.
it was a lot,
Did you take
but
any
I'm
like?
glad.
Did you take any like AP art classes, or was it just like AP like subject courses?
Subject courses, you'd be surprised. I didn't really take a lot of electives, so
Mm.
I didn't. Our family wasn't one that was like, you get to have fun in school. School's for school, right? Like an education.
Right.
And being that a lot of people in back home for us, especially young women, weren't allowed to go to school. It was kind of this privilege that we didn't want to waste at all.
Right.
I fell into a class. I apologize for the noise here.
Good.
New York will be very loud there. But I fell into this course called forensics. I thought it was forensic science. Um, because I liked science and I liked the idea of being the first one in the family to be like a scientist or whatever.
Right.
And it ended up being this speech and debate class.
Hmm.
And I was like, I walked in the first day, people are flailing around, singing, dancing, and speaking poetry and spitting poetry. I mean, and I was like, what the heck is going on? And again, being one of the few in high school, I was like one of the few Black people in school. It was just
Mm-hmm.
like, is this what everybody is doing? Is this it? And I fell in love, and I started with poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my extracurricular activity besides marching band, right? And all of those were really like tools to get me towards um, graduation and getting, you know, a bunch of scholarships so I could go to the top-notch school. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was my version of like extracurricular activities. We
Mm-hmm.
really
Yeah,
wasn't a
you,
thing.
you did mention like sports. What type of sports did you like play? Like, was it tennis, track, stuff like that?
I didn't. I only did like one season of track. I didn't really care for it, and it's crazy because now I'm running. Well, was running marathons and everything, but at the time I was like, yeah, whatever. I played basketball, did soccer, and a little bit of lacrosse,
Mm-hmm.
swim team, diving team. Those were mostly the stuff that I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So I want to get into as far as your art style. Now, how would you
Mhm.
describe your art style and like your process of creating art?
I wish I had a process that was more clear. Uh, um, I got into art again as a way to deal with a lot of the traumas that I experienced coming to the United States and the
Mm-hmm.
traumas of the things that I saw as a kid. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I first started, art was just whatever I'm feeling in that moment is what's
Right.
happening, right? And then I
Mm-hmm.
went from doing pencil drawings to being able to do watercolor because I had access to those things now that we were in the States.
Mm-hmm.
Then before I knew it, I was doing these mixed medium pieces that were just
Mm-hmm.
random, creepy. Actually, a lot like the shirt that I'm wearing right now. This is actually one of the first images that I did during high school, and I turned it into a logo. But um, so it kind of jumps from phase to phase. The
Mm-hmm.
newest style, the style that I'm working in right now, I call it marked by curiosity, which is the immigrant story in my eyes. It's the experience of feeling um, marked visibly and spiritual and emotionally by the
Mm-hmm.
things that people expect of you, the assimilation process,
Right.
the cultural differences, the languages. I call my company tongue tied because that is the feeling that I've felt for the longest time being an immigrant in this country. And
Mm-hmm.
so I started this series right before the pandemic. I had drawn out the characters; they were segmented into sections,
Mm-hmm.
and I use that to demonstrate the way in which the human body is segmented, but also together can become this beautiful piece of tapestry.
Right.
I
Mm-hmm.
include the line work because that's a practice that is done in my culture is marking the skin to demonstrate phases of a person's life, moments of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
childbearing, like a childbirth, sorry, not childbearing, but like having a child and giving birth to a child,
Mm-hmm.
wars and battles that are won, whether it's an actual physical battle or emotional. Um, it's one of those things that's universal, I think, in a lot of cultures, right? In the United States, people tattoo themselves, they pierce themselves. Common in other places, but not as common. Um,
Mm-hmm.
with marking, you know, the skin is scarred. And so it
Mm-hmm.
brings this question about what is beauty, because the more markings, the more, not necessarily status, but the more demonstration of who you are, the things you've endured. And that's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. And coming to this country, this idea of um, colorism is so much more prevalent, I think, of like
Mm-hmm.
segmenting people by what they look like. And my community back home, that's become a thing because of colonization, and you want to look as close to white as possible, whether it's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, through the different things that we do to make ourselves feel beautiful, right? So the beauty standards, the gender standards, and
Mm-hmm.
so I combine all of that with fabric, and I highlight people of color in these um, gorgeous backgrounds. I believe I'm a little biased, but in these gorgeous backgrounds with the natural world, because I think that that's one of those
Mhm.
unifying. We're all surrounded by the same worlds. We're in this on this rock that's flying through space, and um, there's beauty in that. There's also fear in that. There's also reverence in that. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
I know
very
that was a long-winded answer, but
no, it's all good. I think what you're talking about is scarification because
mhm,
I've seen like pictures of certain African cultures, do scarification,
yep,
which is very very interesting. And the thing is, with beauty standards, like with, if you look at like beauty ads or like fashion ads,
mm,
like from 10, 15 years ago, it's like, it was mostly like the white models and
for
things like
sure,
that. For
for sure,
now, for like in terms of now it's getting more into being inclusive in terms of different skin tones and stuff, especially with black women. And I think
yeah,
Fenty really really set the tone for having every single shade, like from the lightest to the darkest.
absolutely,
So it's very great to see that progression.
yeah. I think back to me and elementary school to middle school, high school. There was no one that I saw growing up besides my direct family that
Hmm.
looked from height to weight to like skin complexion,
Yeah.
all of the things. And it took me a long time to come to terms with the idea that beauty isn't surface, right? As much as people would like for the commodity of it, it's very surface level, but it's so much more than that. And the conversation is shifting, right? We're seeing more women living a more plus size life and being
Yeah.
proud of the way that they are born. People
Yeah.
of color admiring their hair and respecting it and revering the coils and the way that we are. That's just how we are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to get into as far as pricing. So what has been the journey as far as pricing your art, and what advice would you give for someone who is struggling to price their work?
Uh just do it. Just price it. The thing that you feel in your soul that is what you deserve. It's a conversation about what you believe you deserve, first and foremost. And I think that because we see predominantly, especially in my field, predominantly white art in
Yeah.
these galleries sold for thousands of dollars, it makes you question, am I worthy? I've had that conversation with myself, sorry, so many times. And it was my
Mhm.
mentor, my sculpting mentor, who was like, you know what? You keep allowing people to play with your money. You keep allowing people to downplay your talent because you say, oh, it's only this. Oh, it's only that. Oh, it's only this. And now it's not a conversation about saying, oh, you need to be outrageous with your pricing, but my first step is how long does it take you to create this piece? What are the things you had to sacrifice? Time is invaluable. And someone telling you that it's not doesn't deserve your art, doesn't
Right.
deserve your skills and what you're bringing to the table.
Right.
So my time, the size of the work, the the materials that I
Yeah.
utilize, all of those things I calculate. So I keep track of
Right.
how long am I taking on this piece, and I note that. But also another thing is I have my pieces, the sizing priced at a certain price. If it's a custom piece, we're going to have a conversation because you're requiring something outside of what I would have done to this campus. And therefore
Right.
that's a different conversation. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I find it very interesting, but it definitely holds true about how it's very, very important to price what you're worth. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
definitely as far as when I went to art school, I went to SCAD. And,
Oh,
in the school, you learn a lot of art in the school. But the thing with art history, you had to learn like how you said, majority white art history. A
yes.
lot of white artists, whether they from the Netherlands, from Spain, wherever, you know what I mean? And there's not much of a diversity in terms of learning different artists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the thing is, like how you said, also too, in galleries. I went to an art gallery at one point. It was majority white artists. You know,
Yeah. And
um,
that's not uncommon, right? Black art
yeah,
is only slowly becoming prevalent. When
yeah,
I was in the United States, no one was listening to Afro beats. No one was like No one was listening to Latinx music, was barely being included on radios. Now we're listening to that. I think predominantly, it feels like
Right.
to me, anyways, it's more
Yeah.
more evident. The same
Hmm.
with movies and TV shows. So few people of color were on screens and being highlighted, not just as a token person, right?
Hmm.
So in the same way, Black art is being received in a different light. It's important for that light to also come with the equivalent
Hmm.
price point, right? You're willing
Yeah.
to pay this much for a piece that, because of this white man or this white woman, whatever. And that's not like
Yeah.
a jab. That's just the reality of it.
Hmm.
People perceive art differently because of who made it. And
Hmm.
there's no like, to me, there's no other way to say that other than that. It's the relationship you build with your audience as a creator, as an artist, plays a huge part in how your art is received. And so if people of color are becoming more prevalent in these spaces, it's also important to ask for what we deserve
Hmm.
for our
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's and also to the add, like in terms of, and I'm glad that more black actors are on screen, but also telling black stories. The movie I
Yes.
seen that I really liked was American Fiction, because it really it's with Jeffrey Wright and it's with Sterling K. Brown.
Oh,
It's really good. You should go see. It's funny, but it plays it
oh,
talks
I
about.
know. Oh, sorry, that my brain just finally clicked on on the title. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, American Fiction. Like I like how like it was funny, but also it was touching on, black stereotypes.
Hmm.
I mean, black American stereotypes, stuff like that. What we're perceived like as thugs or baby mamas, baby daddies. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
was about challenging narrative, but also saying that we're more than these stereotypes.
Hmm.
So, I'm glad that that movie and Cord Jefferson, who did the screenplay of the movie, he got an Oscar for it. With big congrats to him.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, so that's a very
That's a
good
win
movie. And it shows that we're more than the negative. We're there's so many stories of achievement with us as a people.
for sure. For sure. Yeah, I
Hmm.
think that it's easy to see the negative because it sells, right?
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. It sells. People like to feed off of each other's, failures a lot more than they do the wins. That's why we have
Hmm.
places like the Shade Room. That's why we have, all these different places that do continue that narrative of you got to do something negative to be
Yeah.
viewed.
Yeah. I want to get into and push forward and talk
Mhm.
about business. So, what is your perspective on the business aspect of art, and how should artists brand their work in your perspective?
This is what I'll say. Art doesn't have to be a business, right? You don't
Hmm.
have to sell anything for it to be art.
Hmm.
Um, you don't even have to show it for it to be art. I think that I grew up in a time when, um, in order to give value to the art, you had to have some type of business savvy behind it, right? You had to be able to communicate effectively. You needed to be able to brand yourself in a way that allowed other people to view you seriously because art was not viewed as serious and often still doesn't get the same um, respect as other crafts do.
Hmm.
So I think that when I started, yes, branding was very important, and we see that now more than ever with TikToking and
Hmm.
influencing. I think that there's an importance to being able to have a business behind your art because if you can't communicate effectively, if you don't know how much it costs you to get that canvas before you sold it, right, and are cost effective about it, or if you don't know uh, the importance of, hey, you make t-shirts and you don't wear your t-shirts, that's crazy. You want other people to wear your clothes but you're not willing to do that. It's important
Hmm.
to whatever you are putting forth that you stand on that behind that business. I think
Hmm.
that it's harder nowadays to start a business because I feel like it's starting to get very bogged down or like I don't know what the
Competitive.
word is. Competitive. Thank you. It's very competitive now, so you really
Hmm.
do have to make sure that you're meeting a market that is missing, or,
Mm-hmm.
or a tool or a thing that someone needs or wants.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you can also just create just for the love of creating. You can also just make for the love of making, and the people who support you will wear your t-shirts. Will do whatever you're asking of them, with or without a brand deal or a following. You know.
Mm-hmm. I want to go ahead and push forward and talk about
Mhm.
in terms of mediums. So, what are some like your favorite art brushes, paints to use for your artwork?
You're gonna hate this answer. I don't have a favorite of anything. Okay,
Okay.
I'm the type of person who I know what it was like to not have for so long. So I started with like the hardback canvases, the ones that you can get at the dollar store, and I
Mm-hmm.
advised everyone who's like, oh, I want to learn, I want to create, blah blah blah. Do not get sold on this idea that you have to have the brand new brush. You have to have just this, so. I have a bag of just stuff that I've kept probably for like years that I just use still. There are brushes that I buy from the dollar store. There are brushes that I buy from Michael's. I really have no preference at all. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
really what makes it enjoyable for me. Art
Mm-hmm.
is about the flexibility. It's supposed to be freedom. And if I have to consider this idea of like, oh, I'm not using the right brush for me to get noticed, that's not how it works. So I just use what's accessible, what's cost
Mm-hmm.
effective. Michael's is currently having a sale, so I will be buying some canvases tomorrow. So that's it. I used to stretch canvas, and while I enjoy stretching canvas, the process takes a lot longer for me to
Right.
to get to painting, and that's what I want to do. So,
Mm. Yeah, totally understand. When if you had a top three list of your favorite artists, who would they be and why?
ooh, okay. I would say me. I'm kidding. I would say Bisa Butler. I love her work for the texture, the textiles, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a component that I use in my work. I would say, oh man, I want to say obviously Wiley because of the
Yeah,
flower
yeah.
and the floral components and the detailing. He does oil. I don't do oil regularly.
His work is
It
phenomenal.
does amazing. The detail,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I would say Bisa also uses just textile, and I
Yeah.
don't always just use textile. And then I would say either Kwame, I always forget his last name, but he's the sculptor Ghanaian sculptor who has a bunch of pieces that he leaves to look like the remains of enslaved um, men and women throughout
Mm.
the diaspora. The sculptures are just chef's kiss. Um, Tied with El Enautu. El Enautu is Anauti, sorry, is a Ghanaian I'd say sculptor, installist, mixed media artist who gathers cans, beer caps of all sorts. What I love about the work that he does is he um, has communities in Ghana and villages in Ghana collect the pieces and then put them together into
Mm.
these gorgeous, like humongous pieces. So those would be the people that I'm truly enjoying right now.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. Yeah, Bisa Butler is very, very talented. Yeah, Kahene Wiley
Amazing.
is very cool. Another artist that I really like is also his name is Paul Lewin, and he's a black artist out of Miami. And he does
Yeah,
very, very cool artwork. Like,
amazing.
love the complementary colors, and just his composition is really, really amazing.
Yes, yes.
Mhm. So I want to go ahead and really talk about as far as the future. So where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
10 years from now, I will probably either on the West Coast, um, in a house that I have covered wall to wall with paintings, um, um, and with a business. So I've always wanted to have this kind of nonprofit business to allow for women from my country to come here to the United States, get an education, learn a skill, and then go back and create this cycle system where not only are women being educated, but also business owners, entrepreneurs, and creating jobs in their own communities.
Mhm.
And having this little like um, what's it called? The dream's always been this store where like the first floor is like a little cafe situation. You come and eat,
Right,
chill out, do what you need to do. The second
right.
floor is this
Yeah.
studio space to teach art,
Mhm,
um, and provide that as a skill and a space for people to put up art and um, kind of just a big community space to gather and enjoy art. So
mm.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
I know
really,
that's
really
like two dreams in one, but
Yeah, yeah, that's really, really cool. So how do you balance being an artist with life and mental health, possibly?
so I'm an LMHC. Uh, and CRC. So I'm licensed mental health rehab counselor. That's my day to day job.
Oh,
I work as a social worker
okay.
in a charter school, and
Mhm,
mental health is one of my biggest passions. I think that it
mhm.
is a conversation that should never stop happening.
Right.
Um,
Agreed.
that's my belief. I'm glad we agree on that.
Yeah.
So I spend most of my day working with clients and
Mhm,
helping them deal with trauma. And in the
mhm,
evening, I use my time to create and to create a world that I want to see for others and for
mhm.
myself. So I paint, um, and I have a wonderful partner who's not here, but who helps keep me grounded. And I have 250 plants to take care of. So I balance it out like that. And time with
Mhm.
family is very important to me. So my family doesn't live here. So it's important that I take some time and chat and stay connected to my roots. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And the thing what I like about our generation and Gen Z,
Hmm.
than the previous generations, we're talking more about like how you said about mental health and how important that is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because previous generations, it was mostly about survival. Of course, and you have to understand survival, but I think
So
part of
important.
survival is understanding the emotional aspect of it and to maintain that mental health.
Yes, yes. Keep talking to yourself. Keep motivating yourself. Keep being your own like hype woman or hype man,
Yeah,
hype
yeah,
person, right? And I think that's important. And
absolutely.
being honest. So many people are suffering silently, and that I think is the biggest detriment. And it's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something to feel guilty about. Um,
Hmm.
your well-being is the one thing you can't go without, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
It impacts every other aspect of your life. It does.
yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Last but not least, where can people find you on social media and how can people support you and your art business?
Yes. So you can find me. It's tongue tied. I'm wearing the one of my shirts. This is a collab with Fourth Wall. You can find me on TikTok at EUNIVERSED Universe 8.
Hmm.
And then I have an Instagram that you can follow. Same tag. I'm pretty easy to follow along with. I will be posting or putting up some artwork in the gallery at 8 Pack for a
Cool.
Women's Month, celebration. I'm one of 10 female artists, and the
Wow,
title is
congrats.
Matriarchy's Rise. Thank you. So you can find all that information also on my website, which is also available, which is tonguetied8.com. Yeah,
All right, that's cool. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Eunice, for jumping onto the show. I ran
of
into you on
course.
TikTok. Your work is absolutely great. I love your style. I love the color palette. I love the play with pattern, as well as the color blocking of skin tone. So I really like that how you're about telling a story about your culture and sharing your experiences. So definitely just thank you so much. I love this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm honored. Any opportunity to share is awesome.
Yes, absolutely. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye bye. Hello, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to click the bell for notifications. Also, follow me on my social media platforms and be on the lookout for more interviews to come very soon. Take care, stay healthy, and stay beautiful. Bye bye.